I kind of appreciate that about him. But anyways, with Dave Chappelle saying basically everybody's going to have to kind of be able to say their piece, and there's not going to be an impunity, and everybody's going to have to kind of just let them go. Now, you tell me if somebody was to come out and tell you a story about how they have wronged, the system, and they've been doing things behind the scenes and really, trying to ruin people's lives for the advantage of their power. You really think those people are going to be able to? I just don't think people are non-selfish enough that they would be like, okay, thanks for coming out and telling your story and helping make things good in the future, although now you're a billionaire and you have all this power. Thank you for going ahead and telling your story. And they're going to turn it's just hard for me to believe that, what he's asking for there is realistic, because I just don't think people are going to, turn the other cheek when especially if we go back into what we were just talking about in Hollywood. Would you turn the other cheek if somebody came out and said, yeah, I did rape, Corey Haim, and that's your best friend, and, oh, yeah, okay, well, thank you for being honest. I just don't think people are going to be willing to turn the other cheek. I think that's just it's on a whole nother level. Extortion or something like that's one thing, but when you're, molesting somebody's kid or something like that, I don't think there's a bridge to that. I just don't know if there is ever a way that you're going to be able to get people to, all right, yeah.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But whenever I talk, there's an echo, and I was gonna answer that. No, I agree with you. I agree with you definitely. But I also think I know that's a big thing to get over. But the example that Chappelle uses is probably the most extreme example you could use, because he's talking about South Africa and apartheid rule. The rule of apartheid really was brutal to the native African people who live there. The levels of racism, the levels of xenophobia, just the amount of rape and poverty that was dealt towards those people. But his point was that when Mandela and those who were involved, when they did become in power, his point was that by any standards that you could imagine, that there should have been blood running in the streets. But they didn't do that. What they did was they got together and they actually talked about it, and people were not held accountable for their actions. Because like I said, they said that anybody who was part of the system, even the people who actually benefited from it, I'm not saying that there probably wasn't some people who were put in jail for crimes against humanity and things like that. I don't know exactly. But they were able to get past the problem because everybody was willing to help at that point, say what they did, say what they were sorry for, and say what the issue was, so they were actually able to move past it. And I get what you're saying. That's a hell of a thing to say. Like, okay, I was a member of Hollywood, one of Hollywood's elite, and, I fucked Corey Haim, and, I feel horrible about it. But, that was part of the system that we were in. There was a lot of, there was this, that. I'm not making excuses for it by any means, because then, that's horrible. But you get my point, is how do you actually move past that when we're still moving forward in a system where nobody wants to say what's really going on, because they know that if they say something, it's going to come back to bite them.
So can we just go ahead and move to a much different, not a different topic, but a different agenda, right? So you and I debate politics all the time. I debate politics with people all the time. So you could almost take what you're talking about right now and apply it to current state, right? Like somebody's a Democrat, I'm a conservative, somebody's a libertarian, somebody's an anarchist, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, how do you ever move forward if everybody's still trying to save a point from something that's going, everything is politicized, right? So nobody's ever going to come out and admit, you know what, I kind of agree a little bit with you, or you're probably right. Nobody's going to do that, because at this point it's a matter of scoring points. And and I think even in that regard, it's like, well, the concern there is, well, the punishment will be so high that there's no way I'm ever going to come out and admit that, right? So apartheid, racism, your murder, that's pretty drastic shit. But in today's current climate, right? Like you're damn near exactly the same age as me. You watched all these other presidents come through, and now we're in the Trump years, right? So now it's like I hate Trump, right? Or I hated Barack, but there's no conversion. There's no giving points anymore. It's just about scoring points. Like there's no trade. The debate doesn't even exist. It's Trump's an idiot. Okay, I get it. Trump is an idiot. But at what point do you say, well, how do we get this guy through the next 4 years without fucking up our country? Or do you say like what Bill Maher says? You know what? I want everything to fucking go to shit because then all of a sudden it makes me look right. But in the meantime, I'm going to be in that whole pile of shit that's going down the tubes. So I maybe the analogy is not perfect, Bo, but what I'm getting at is how do we apply the exact same mentality? What Dave's saying there, even when he was like kind of talking about when Trump first got elected, hey, give the guy a chance, and we got to kind of listen to each other. There's not a lot of that going on. So it's like, how am I ever supposed to believe in some of these things to, be so perfect when we're so, as a people, we're so dumb. Like, I don't think we have the ability to turn the other cheek in a lot of ways. I think we're so selfish that it's unnatural for us to ever even concede a point or, see the point at this point. Things are just so much different right now, just at that level, let alone some of these bigger issues that you're talking about, like pedophilia or any of these other world dynamics. Like we can't even get along on a basic blue and red conversation.
Well, yeah, I think that there's two different types of conversations that are going on. At least when I say conversation, I mean conversations in the marketplace of ideas now. Which, of course, the marketplace of ideas is the World Wide Web, social media, things like that. There are two different types of conversations going on. One is a very short form type of communication. These are your Facebook ads, your clickbaits. Unfortunately, a lot of what we would consider the mainstream press that has served us well over the years is now relying on, for whatever reason, they may have to rely on it, but now is relying on this very clickbaity type of thing. So even the whole Lysol thing that we were talking about earlier, making fun of and kind of expounding upon, it was a very benign thing, okay? Don't get me wrong, it was stupid, and we could go back and forth, and I think we all agree that Trump just says stupid shit sometimes, and you wonder where the fuck he's coming from, because we're so used to presidents, ever since Barack Obama, we're used to presidents sounding presidential. Say what you want about Barack Obama or his policies or whatever. He sounded presidential when he spoke. He sounded like he knew what the fuck he was talking about. Trump does not come off like he knows what the fuck he's talking about. But regardless, the spin on it has been from, left-leaning news sources and stuff that he's trying to convince people to ingest disinfectants and things like that, which is taking something he said and running with it. But the headline is clickbait. So, they're wanting to get those clicks. They're wanting to get people to do that. But if you actually click on the article and read it, usually there's more of the truth in there. But the problem is people are scrolling through Facebook and they're just sharing things based upon the headline so that they look like they're smart or look like they're following these types of things, but they're not really reading what is actually been said and what's actually going on. So it's really weird. So that's one conversation that's going on in the marketplace. But then there's another conversation. It's things like this. Things like the Lyceum network that you're in with me and stuff, where we tend to have a little bit more of a long dialogue back and forth where we flesh things out. Things like the Joe Rogan show does, to where he'll have somebody on, and maybe Bernie Sanders is on there, and he talks to them for 2.5 hours. And there's a large group of people who are gravitating towards that sort of information because they're tired of the sound bites. They're tired of the clickbait stuff. They're wanting to get actual information from the actual sources. And I think that that's a positive thing. It's a new intellectualism that, at least to me, is refreshing. But no, yeah, to the point, that's the only way we're going to get from this cesspool of you talking about, where most people are not paying attention and stuff, is when more people are taking the time to maybe read good source book material or get into some of these long-form discussions.
Well, I know from all the debates I've had with you, you see like me get into it with my brother, other people, blah, blah, blah. But here's the real truth, right? Like, I went to school with you, right? I'm by no means a genius. I don't know anything that nobody else knows. What I can tell you is I went to college and I took history class, and the first thing they tell you is they teach you all about bias. Nobody ever taught me about that in the entire time that I went through high school. Nobody ever said, be aware of your sources. And then I started to find out, well, damn, even the school books that I read were sources. They were made by McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill has their own financing companies, right? Like the people who are going to decide what they write. Small story. What I'm getting at is, like I went to college. I was told, hey, from now on, when you look at your media, try to identify what their bias might be. Once you find out what their bias is, and keep in mind that that's their influence, that's their goal, that's their end game, that's everything. That's what they're doing, right? So if you remember some of the conversations that me, you, and Nate had way back when, and he starts bringing out like Noam Chomsky. So I went and got this stupid Audible app, which I'm still paying for 3-4 years later, because I still get all these damn Audible books, all because I wanted to read up on Noam Chomsky, right? So I read up on Noam Chomsky, lets you start telling me about all these different other, he's telling you, like, basically be aware of your media, the media machine, blah, blah, blah. And then all the things that kind of fell out when Donald Trump got elected. And I know the guy's an idiot, but, there's so much more dynamics to dig into with just that. I'm not even going to get into that. But the point that I'm trying to go toward is, like, there's no way that you can even try to influence somebody if they're not even going to read the articles, if they're not even looking to dig past what Chuck Todd told them. You can't even have a debate. And I get so mad at people who are what I consider media, super media friendly people. I can guarantee you, when you think of people who love movies, they love music, they love media sources, they just kind of have an admiration for the media, they generally don't ever fact check any of that. It's verbatim, whatever they said, and boom, they push it out into their Facebook, and then when you start debating with them, they're mad at you because you're like, well, how do you know that? It's like, well, I went and read all the primary sources. I didn't just leave myself at secondary sources. You have to travel upstream on these stories that you actually care about. And I'm somebody, I pay attention to the entire, media cycle. People don't do that. They just don't do it. And I'm not saying it's because I'm smarter than them. It truly is a matter of going out there and checking your sources. Put CNN right beside Fox. Read them side by side and tell me they don't have an influence against things. And I got to be honest, like, a lot of the debates I have, I almost give up because it's like, fuck, you're not even looking at anything. You've literally already made up your mind. Like, Barack Obama, no, I don't love all his policies. But I grew up on welfare, dude. Like, so I don't want to get rid of all safety nets. That's not my goal. But I don't want a bigger government of more politicians because, well, I've never seen a good politician yet. Everybody I thought was a good politician when we were young, they all end up being pieces of shit. And then everybody I see now, I don't want more politicians. I don't believe any of them.
Well, yeah, and it comes to a point to where there's a disingenuousness to it, and we even mentioned this beforehand, to whereas in the whole statement that he made, and I hate to keep going back to it because it really is a non-story, but the statement that he made about the UV lights and the disinfectant and stuff, like he came out today and said, oh, or at least what I've seen, and I didn't read quite into it, but supposedly came out today and said that he was just joking around or he was being sarcastic or something, trying to cover his tracks. And that's not true either. At least it doesn't feel like it's true. I feel like he just said something stupid, and he's not a doctor, and, he doesn't know about this stuff. And, yeah, we might say it sounds stupid, but most of your normal Americans don't know whether you can do that or not either. They might have said the same stupid thing, but because he's the president, we're like, well, you can't say stupid stuff like that. He should have just came out and said, like, I feel like I would feel much more respect for him if he just would have came out and said, like, look, I don't know. If anything works, it works. And, I'm not a doctor. So, yeah, I know it sounds stupid. And thinking about it now, yeah, it does kind of sound stupid. Oh, well, you can't win them all.
So, look, man, like, I'm definitely a conservative. I'm not a Republican. And that's why I don't claim party politics, because I really do like try to dig into these people and try to find